I would like to say something about our next speaker because, right, we've heard this raised a couple times about, oh, you libertarians, you're not electable, blah, blah, blah. What I love about Willie Marshall is that I only have to say 2 words to completely refute their argument. Willie Marshall. Because Willie is awesome. Now, I just a couple months ago did a big long, it was like an hour interview with him talking about, he's awesome because, he after he got elected, then he went around speaking to libertarians. What do you actually do when you get elected? Because we don't know. Yeah, so I'm excited because I actually haven't heard this whole talk. But I love Willie Marshall as a libertarian. I don't know him that well personally, but I love him as a libertarian because, somebody raises that point and I say, well, let me tell you a little something about this guy. His name is Willie Marshall. And not only was he the first elected libertarian mayor in the entire United States, and it happened here in Utah, he is also an openly gay man. And what I find funny, funny as a libertarian, I guess, but what I find funny is that when I asked him, I said, Willie, what do you find more of a detriment to a political career, being out gay or out as a libertarian? He said, hands down, like he didn't even hesitate. Oh yeah, libertarian, that's much more of a liability politically. So, and actually, the chair of one of the current parties, who I will not name, actually said a very similar thing. So, without any further ado, I want to welcome the Honorable Willie Marshall.
Well, the title of my talk is How Almost Any Libertarian Who is Reasonably Presentable Can Get into Public Office and What to Do When You Get There. Now, that's kind of a long title, but it really is about as short as I can make it. How many here, by a show of hands, think that maybe someday you would like to be in office, whether appointed or elected? Come on, let's see. In your wildest dreams, maybe you want to be at least on zoning board or town council or... Okay. Well, that's a good percentage. Anyway, I believe that you can do it, and following 3 simple rules. And I'll tell you what those are. It's suit up, show up, and play the game. Okay? Briefly, suit up means just what's things. You got to look the part. Show up means show up in your community. Get involved in church, civic organizations, be a good neighbor. And play the game means have a positive attitude, be friendly, go out and meet people, have that personal contact, be polite, not rude, be relevant, not ridiculous. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I became a libertarian after my mission. I was a Mormon missionary. I came home, and just within months after I got home, I felt driven, or inspired if you prefer the word, to get involved in politics. And I read Atlas Shrugged, and it just blew my mind. And I considered myself not a Republican, I considered myself an objectivist. And so I immediately ran for school board in Davis County on this kind of objectivist ticket of we should have more parental choice and let kids that maybe aren't suited for school do apprenticeships and get out of the system, think outside the box and all that kind of stuff. And that was where I got started. The next year, I hadn't really heard of libertarians before. I didn't hear about Ed Clark at all. Had no idea who Ed Clark was or the Libertarian Party. About a year later, I was in an Albertsons at the checkout line, and in the books, they had some paperback books, and there was this book with the red, white, and blue cover on it with, stars and stripes kind of thing, and it said, Restoring the American Dream. And I thought, well, I'm a patriotic kind of a guy, and so I pick up this book and open it up, and it says, right on the first page, in the introduction, it said something like, I want to thank Ayn Rand and stuff, and I went, oh, wow, this sounds like something I'd like. And so I bought it, and I started reading it. Then I went in to apply for a job. I was working at an auto parts warehouse, and I went into a alarm company here in town, burglar alarm thing, to be a dispatcher. And as I walked in for the interview, I was carrying this Restoring the American Dream and a copy of Mother Earth News. And the guy and the dispatcher in there was this guy with this big beard and hair down to here and stuff, and he goes, "Oh, are you a libertarian?" And I said, "I am now. I've been reading this book," and yeah. And he said, "Well, you want to join the party?" And I said, "Sure." And that was Bob Waldrop, and he was state chair, not at that time, but later. And we've been friends ever since. So I joined the party in 1981. Oh gosh, in 1986, I went on a little recruiting drive around the state to find people to run for office. I was state secretary, and I went around looking up people on our mailing list saying, "Hey, you know, would you like to run for office?" And one of the places I went to was, well, first of all, I went to see Royston Potter, who was a polygamist here in Salt Lake. He was a Murray policeman who was fired for being a plig. And I saw him on TV, and I thought, this guy's sharp. You know, I should. And so I went to see him, and I knocked on his door. I was working, actually at the time, I was working as a police dispatcher in Salt Lake, so I just looked him up, you know, and found his address. And so I went out and knocked on his door, and I said, "Here," I said, "read this book." And I said, "If you like it, I'd like you to, you know, join the Libertarian Party." Well, he read it, and he called me back like just a few days later, and he says, "I love it." He says, "I'm going to join the party," and he ran for sheriff that year as a Libertarian, sheriff of Salt Lake County. And he said, "You ought to go see my friend Alex down in Bigwater." And so I kind of made a little road trip down to Bigwater, which is 350 miles from here, and came to town, and Alex happened to be out of town, but I had met some of his wives, and I gave him the book. Oh, they said, "Oh, well," you know, I gave him the book and stuff, and I said, "Well, would you please give this to Alex and stuff, and tell him if he's interested, we'd like him to run for office and stuff." And they said, "Oh, well, we're Republicans and we're not going to change, but we'll give him your book and we'll tell him what you said." So a week later, Alex called me and he says, "I read the book and I love it." He says, "I could have written a book just like that myself." And so he joined the party, and he was already the mayor of Bigwater at the time. And he switched parties, and the entire city council also switched. And they all became Libertarians, and the judge. And the judge in town, she was a former prostitute. Because Bigwater has a rather colorful history. But anyway, so I met Alex, and we became great friends. He became like a father to me in a lot of ways, and his family all took me in, and they just considered me part of the family. And they knew I was gay. And or they figured it out pretty quick. I mean, Boudica, who's one of his wives, and she's just gorgeous. And she's the first straight person ever told I was gay. And I took her out in my Corvette, and I went for a little drive, and I stopped. I said, "I got to tell you something." And I started crying. She goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm gay." And she says, "Oh, I knew that." She says, I could tell the first time I met you." She says, "Because you didn't look at my boobs when you talked to me." So anyway, but so I was quite entranced by Bigwater. I thought I'd found Galt's Gulch, you know. I just thought, wow, these people are all so cool and everything. And I bought some land there. I did some commercial lots, and I thought someday I'd like to move down here and you know, and live here, and try it out. So in 2000, I did. I moved. I had the time and the money. I thought, I'm going to just do it. And so I went down there and bought a house and just started getting involved. About a month later, a guy got mad and quit planning and zoning. And so I put in for that, and I was appointed to be on planning and zoning. And about a month or two after that, the mayor and one of the council members got mad and quit during a meeting and threw the keys down and they went, "Here, you know." And I was then appointed to be on town council. And I'd only been in town a few months. Well, the lady, the gal that was appointed to be mayor, she was fairly new to town, but she was nice. I liked her as a person. And we were facing a disincorporation move. People were mad because, well, our previous mayor was a jerk. But anyway, the taxes were really high. They get nothing for their money. And so it was thought, well, gosh, let's just disincorporate. We'll at least save the money, you know. And so I told Tanya, I said, you know, we could cut the knees off of this disincorporation thing. I said, the main complaint is their taxes are too high. I said, let's just cut taxes, and this will go away. And so she agreed, and she promised to cut taxes and stuff. And you can't change the budget until the next May, and this disincorporation thing was coming up in February. Well, it did work. The disincorporation failed 2-1. Then come May, time came around to actually cut taxes, and she wouldn't do it. She says, we're just not going to be able to cut taxes because there's things we need to do in town. And she wanted a salary too. And so she voted herself a $13,000 a year salary. And I just thought, well, it's your funeral, you know. And so that fall, I ran against her, and I won. And I won pretty big. Being in office for me has like been a major life goal. But it was the 13th time I'd run for office. That's even more than Abraham Lincoln ran. But I did win. I won on 3 things: issues, image, and personal contact. I knocked on every door in town, and I won by a margin of 90-67. Everybody in town knew I was gay. Interestingly, the Pligs all voted for me. Them and their families all voted for me. And there were 2 other gay guys in town, and they didn't vote for me. So, there you go. Let's see. What people may ask, well, what can you do when you get in office? What can one person do? Well, the answer is quite a lot. I mean, mayors have enormous power in Utah, for good or evil. But I promised myself, you know, when I realized just how much power mayors have, I just promised myself that I would only use my powers for good and never for evil. And so I did pretty good. Mayors, you chair all the meetings, you set the budget, you hire all the people, the police, the building inspector, the clerk, etc. You, let's see. You appoint all the board members for planning and zoning, the Board of Adjustments. You appoint the judge. You hire the town attorney who prosecutes the cases, and you hire the building inspector. Mayors can also grant pardons, which is something I think very few mayors in Utah do. I probably did more than anybody. I granted pardons for lots of traffic things. We went through, the judge I appointed was a Libertarian judge, and he was brilliant, and we went through all the case files that were still outstanding, and we just went through and, you know, decide which ones to pardon, because various reasons, like, you know, there was no victim. And then I made up a letter to send out to people when I granted them pardons, saying, you know, this is just to notify you that you've been pardoned in this case. And then I said, you know, we're a libertarian town, and if you're interested and stuff. And then I would throw in, I also would include a little green card from the ACLU, is what to do if you're stopped by the police. So I put that in the envelope and send that out. Anyway, I ran for office on, well, let's see, maybe I should switch gears here, go to the 3 things about getting elected first, and then we can go back and talk some more war stories. Suit up means look the part. Look like a politician. You should wear a dress shirt and a tie anytime you do something that's you know, related in your official capacity. Get a haircut if you need to. It is not a sellout on principle to cut your hair. Let's see. I mean, you can be a pothead or whatever and get elected, but you just can't look like one and get elected. See, don't let your appearance be a reason for people to vote for you. Or against you, rather. A nice mustache is okay, and as much as I love beards, I wouldn't have one if I was running for office. Anyway, I'd say 30% of why I got elected was because of image. When I'd show up, I was on planning and zoning and town council, I would wear a shirt and tie every time, and even from planning and zoning, and this is like very casual meetings, and you know, nobody'd ever want to tie to anything. And in fact, the previous mayor, the one that got mad and quit, he used to show up at council meetings in a T-shirt with the sleeves ripped off and stuff. I mean, just looked horrible. But anyway, if you look the part, it'll help. People will give you more respect if you look like you're taking this seriously. Show up means show up in your community. Get involved in civic organizations, Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, etc. It wouldn't hurt to go to church. Even if you don't believe in God, you could at least go to the Unitarians, like Andy McCulloch does. And like it or not, church attendance is important to many people, to many Americans. And it's important that you go to church, even if you don't go to their particular church. And at a church, you'll meet nice people who will like you because, and they'll vote for you because they know you from church. They won't necessarily agree with you on things, but the fact that they know you and, oh yeah, he goes to our church, that's enough to get their vote. I'm sorry, that's how it works. But besides, don't we libertarians believe in voluntary organizations, charitable organizations, and they are a good way to help people in need and so on. So we should go and find a church that you can be comfortable in and do that. I think that's a very important thing. Be a good neighbor. Be friendly. Be a good example in your community. Clean up your yard. Play the game means to get out and campaign. Meet as many people as you possibly can. I went to every door in my town. Say, can I count on your vote when you're talking to them? They'll either say yes, in which case they've made a verbal commitment. They've invested in your campaign, even if it's just verbally. They've made a commitment, and they're almost positively going to vote for you if they say yes. Or they may say no, or they may say maybe. But the yes ones are definitely going to vote for you, and they will talk about you to other people. You can ask them then to put up a yard sign or ask them for a donation or whatever. Don't be shy. Be polite and nice to everyone, even your opponents, and people you disagree with or even despise who are in office. They say politics makes strange bedfellows. And I have to say that's really true. And so you should be polite and nice because you never know who you're going to be sleeping with tomorrow. And I mean that. I did some things as mayor with people that I thought were just horrible politically, but I was able to actually work with them, and they did give me respect, and we were able to do some good things. And you meet people also through those kind of deals where even though they don't agree, if there's a certain respect there, you can then go to them later, and if you don't win your race or whatever, you can go to them later and talk to them, and you might get it appointed to a city board or county board or something like that. Let's see. Most people will vote for you in a local race if they like you, and if they think you're a good person. Smile at everybody sincerely and as much as you can. And if cheerfulness doesn't come natural to you, you may need to work on that. But people really don't care that much about issues in these little races or where you stand, not nearly as much as if they feel like they know you and like you. That doesn't mean issues aren't important. I think they were probably 20% of why I won. But if people don't like you, they won't vote for you. If they do like you, they'll probably vote for you, even if they don't agree with you on some things, or even if they don't even know what you stand for. Their votes count just as much as the most hardcore libertarian who votes for you, because you're absolutely where they think, even though I don't know of any two libertarians that agree on everything. Pick your political issue. Alex was fond of quoting an Indian chief who said, "There go my people. I must hasten after them, for I am their leader." And that fits here because you need to pick a couple of issues, one or two, no more, and make them your own. You got to find things that people are going to relate to, and things that people like. My two issues were I promised that I would repeal my own salary and that I would cut taxes. You don't have to put the entire libertarian platform in your race or talk about it, even if you're asked. Stick to your one or two issues and hammer them home. If someone or the media asks you about drugs or abortion or something that's not relevant to your office, say, "I'm running to cut taxes. That is my big issue." You don't have to talk about what they want to talk about, especially if they're just trying to bait you. Let's see, the mayor's thing about the salary, towns that small don't usually have paid mayors. I looked into it. The only two towns in Utah I could find that had paid mayors were Bryan Head and Alta, which are like, these rich ski resort towns. And with multi-million-dollar budgets. So my first act when I took office was to repeal my salary. That made some headlines, and then, but the very first headline we made was right after I got elected. The incumbent mayor, she was so humiliated by my winning. She told her clerk, she says, "Oh well, you know," she didn't even really campaign because she says, "Who's going to vote for that gay guy?" You know, and she was so humiliated when she lost. She left town the next day and put a for sale sign on her house, and didn't come back. And so I chaired that next meeting. A couple of weeks later, I chaired the meeting because, you know, she wasn't there, and I knew how to run a meeting. And so we did, and I introduced this bill to decriminalize marijuana in Bigwater. And this is before I'd even actually become mayor. And so, anyway, there was some discussion, and so one guy says, "Well, aren't we sending a message to kids that it's okay to smoke pot?" And I said, "No." I said, "We're sending a message that the punishment should fit the crime, and this one does." Because actually we didn't totally decriminalize it. We said that the maximum fine for possession of marijuana up to an ounce in Bigwater will be $10. So it wasn't totally legal, but anyway, and paraphernalia was $5. So that's way less than a parking ticket. And but anyway, he voted for it, so it passed unanimously. And then I went home and I wrote in my journal. I thought, I said, damn, I could talk these people into anything. So. But the the county sheriff and the highway patrol took great exception to this ordinance, and as soon as they heard about, like, one of the highway patrolmen came in our office, slammed his fist on the desk, and he says, "Who's the dope smoking son of a bitch who wrote this?" You know, and we started getting harassment in the town a lot. I mean, one day, and Bigwater's a town of 400 people. We had dirt roads throughout the town. There wasn't a paved road in town. And they sent 6 highway patrol cars out to Bigwater about 2 weeks after we did this ordinance. 6 highway patrol cars going up and down every street, pulling over everybody and ticketing them for everything they could find. Cracked tail light, cracked windshield, no seat belt, no child seat, failure to signal, etc. It was horrible. I was afraid to leave my house. You know, it was really bad. And so at the next council meeting, we repealed the ordinance, and but every one of the council members says, you know, we live in a police state. You know, it's none of their business what we do here in Bigwater, and we really don't have any problem here, and you know, that this is wrong what they're doing. So we repealed the ordinance, but I just said to my people, I said, well, we'll just handle this administratively. So, because the mayor, or the town prosecutor, he was on board, and I just said, if you get any marijuana cases, you just, you know, move for dismissal. And the judge, of course, being a pothead himself, he was fine with that. But he looked great. I mean, he's looked very straight, and he's brilliant. This guy's sharp as a tack. He was a brilliant legal mind, though not an attorney. And but he was wonderful. And anyway, so we had those 2 bases covered. And then when I hired police, I would tell them, I said, well, now, you know, we have polygamists and pot smokers in this town, and I'm gay, and if you have a problem with any of that, you probably shouldn't work here. And I started the police department in Bigwater. It had been disbanded for several years, and I ended up hiring a total of 5 cops over the years, and 3 of them turned out to be good and would work with me, and 2 of them were just terrible. And if I had it to do over again, I did run an ad one time in the Libertarian Party newspaper, in the LP News. You know, police officer wanted unique opportunity to work in a libertarian town and whatever. And I didn't get any real leads off that. I wish I'd have contacted law enforcement against prohibition and asked them. I don't know if they were even around when I was doing this, but anyway, that's. Oh gosh. So anyway, we did that, and I granted one pardon for marijuana right after I became mayor too. It was a case in our system, and the guy had pled guilty for possession of an ounce, and the judge, which was a previous judge, fined him $1,600. So I granted him a pardon, and he never paid it, so I just granted him a pardon. So I bet he wondered about that when he got the letter. Let's see. Oh, and when I'd hire cops, I'd tell them too. I said, you know, what I'm looking for is Andy Griffith and Chips, and what I don't want is Miami Vice and cops. You know, that like I say, some of the guys were really good. One of the officers, in fact, was a Libertarian Party member, had been for years. I didn't even know it. And so that was pretty neat. Let's see. Play the game. I think that's mostly it. Do you have some questions? I've got a few other stories I could probably tell, but go ahead.
William, hold on.
Yeah?
So what's the town like now?
Well, okay. Oh my God. The I hired 2 bad cops at the end because the others, like one retired and stuff, and the other quit. He didn't like being a cop and stuff. Anyway, and I hired 2 more, and it was terrible. They were just awful. They knew what I wanted, and they went to I believe they went to the sheriff and says, "Hey, this guy's really bad, and we need to expose him and bring him down or whatever," because they gave me nothing but trouble, and they really turned the town against me in a big way, and they caused all kinds of trouble. I finally fired one of them and his wife, who I also hired to be the town clerk at the time. Big mistake. But he turned around and sued the town, sued me personally, and oh gosh, he made life miserable. I really did not enjoy being mayor the last year or so. It was really a hassle. In the end, though, his lawsuit was found to be without merit and all that. But I lost some sleep over it. It was scary. Anyway. He turned so many people of the town against me. If I'd have run for re-election, there's no way I would have won. Even though I saved every family in that town hundreds of dollars over the 4 years on their property taxes, and also I paved all the streets. They were all dirt, and I paved all the streets without taxes. And even though I did that, there's no way I would have got re-elected. The guy who ran after me, well, there was one guy that was running, against the Marshall administration, even though I wasn't running anymore. And then one of my town council supporters ran for office, and he's like the nicest guy in town. Nobody had a possible bad word to say about Rick Parsons. Everybody liked him, but he won by 3 votes. If it would have been me, I would have been crushed, They immediately did take control of the town council, and even though my guy was mayor, they voted to more than double the taxes. They raised the taxes higher than what it was when I started, They more than doubled them. And, that was that. And they didn't really have anything to show for it after that. They just kind of wasted the money, and they've never done a good thing since, as far as I know. They haven't even repaved the roads. And it's been 8-10 years now. What's the biggest headache of being mayor is probably zoning. Zoning is property rights turned upside down. Most people would say, if you ask most people what's their idea of property rights? Well, property rights means if I own a house and land or whatever, I can do what I want as long as I don't hurt other people or something. Well, that's not what zoning's all about. Zoning means you do not have the right to do with your property what you want. However, you have the right to tell your neighbor what they can't do with theirs. So it's just awful. And so many people want to use zoning to beat up on their neighbors and stuff. It's awful. And it was hard to find people to fill positions. I tried to appoint people that I thought, would be sympathetic on the idea of freedom and property rights and stuff, and to zoning boards. And like I appointed one guy, and I don't like building inspectors, and I don't like bureaucracy, and blah 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 blah. And you should do what you want. And I appointed him. First thing he does is he goes and tries to use his position to give his neighbor down the road some grief because he didn't like him. It's crazy. A little bit of power corrupts, it's for sure. Oh gosh, what else? I think people should. Oh, one fun thing I noticed the very first time I got appointed, even to be on planning and zoning, is when all of a sudden you're not just this wacky libertarian who is against everything. People actually listen to what you have to say, and it's really fun because they take what you say, and so that's really cool. I also gave a Reason magazine and books and pamphlets to people that would come talk to me, and other politicians also. I think you should keep the eye on the big picture, not get caught up in the real small stuff. Libertarians have had some tragic missed opportunities. Back in the 80s, the mayor of Bakersfield, California, was this lady named Mary Schell. She got elected. She was a registered libertarian, but it was a nonpartisan race. But it came out soon after that, oh, wow, she's a libertarian. So you know what happened? Did Bakersfield become this libertarian paradise? Well, not really, because what happened is some people that I would classify as asshole California libertarians went and saw her and like, oh, well, if you're a libertarian, you need to immediately declare all drugs legal and you need to abolish taxes to zero and they gave her a rash and said, well, you're not really a libertarian. And so what'd she do? She went and quietly changed her registration to Republican. That was that. But had they gone in instead and gone, hey, we're great to hear that you're a libertarian. We'd love to work with you. We've got resources. There's the Reason Foundation, which does all kinds of, how-to things about privatization. We can really do some cool stuff here. And so going in friendly and stuff instead of, you need to abolish government if you're going to be a libertarian. That doesn't work. That was one tragic one. Jesse Ventura was another one. He got elected governor of Minnesota, and he called himself a libertarian. And how libertarian he is, I don't know. But I think he should have been approached and said, hey, can we help? And also, can you appoint some of our people to the thousands of state board, positions you have? They could have worked with him. Even Bill Clinton once said he was kind of a libertarian. Well, somebody should have gone from the party and said, oh, well, we'd love to talk to you about that. And how about, let's talk about some presidential pardons for certain things or whatever. But anyway, those are just some of the ones that got away. Gary Johnson, in fact, I spoke at one of the Libertarian Party conventions after I was elected, and I gave this spiel, and the libertarians there really didn't like Gary Johnson. He's not really a libertarian. But they should have gone to him and said, hey, we'd love to work with you. Because I'm sure he would have appointed some of them to positions, and it could have been better. But I'm glad that it didn't, turn Gary off so much that he wouldn't have anything more to do with us. And I'm delighted that he's running now. They don't call it the Librarian Party for nothing. But I wonder how many of you have read this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Show of hands. Well, you all need to read it, even if you're not running for office, but especially if you are running for office. This book it's life-changing. It really is. And it just makes so much sense on how to get along with people. Yeah, you don't have to quit being yourself, but the things that this book talks about are invaluable if you're going to be in public eye. Let's see. Any more questions?
Yeah, if we have questions, let's keep it maybe to one or two, because with the Gary Johnson edition and then all the drama this morning, we were about half hour late, and I want to get to James Mooney too. So any questions for the Honorable Willy Marshall? Anybody?
I got a few things to show you.
And you're going to be around too, so people can...
I got a few things to show you. When I ran for mayor and won, I thought the next morning, I could be on the front page of the Tribune with one phone call. Just tell them, oh, Utah's got a gay mayor. But I didn't. I thought, no, everybody in town knew I was gay, but I thought, no, I'm not going to. I'll just wait, and when the media finally discovers it, then that'll be okay. I'm not going to avoid it or anything, certainly. And so finally, one guy from Salt Lake Metro, which is a gay paper here in Salt Lake, came down and interviewed me, and here's what resulted was this cover story, Utah's gay mayor. And so right after that, the Tribune picked up the story, and then, I started getting calls from all over and stuff. The marijuana thing also got a lot of publicity. And that was, like I say, just right after I was elected, but not even become mayor yet. And Tom Barberi had me on his show here in Salt Lake, and he introduced, and this was a few months later, but he introduced me as the mayor of Bongwater, which I thought was quite clever. Oh, gosh. First headline I made was in St. George, new marijuana ordinance passed in Bigwater. And my mother called me. This was Friday. Our town council meeting was like Tuesday night. And my mom called me on Friday morning. She says, Willy, you're on the front page of the St. George paper. And I said, what? And she says, yeah, it says here, new marijuana ordinance passed in Bigwater. And I thought, oh crap, but anyway, that was just fun. Here's another headline: Bigwater cuts property tax. That was the Kane County paper. Bigwater mayor repeals own salary. Oh God, here's a horror story. Party loses majority on Leadville, Colorado City Council. You had a elected majority on town council in Leadville, which is, a touristy little mining town. They get caught up in this thing, and from pure libertarian standpoint, they had this ordinance somebody wanted to have or repeal or whatever about weeds. Should you allow weeds to grow in your yard to be 3 feet tall? And they were, of course, taking the position. Some of the libertarians were taking the position, no, nobody has the right to tell you what to do with your property. And so basically it got the whole town in an uproar. At least one of the guys changed from Libertarian to Republican after it, and they basically lost their chance there. They had a wonderful chance. They could have cut taxes, they could have privatized things, they could have done some real things instead of getting caught up with the philosophical arguments of, do you have the right to grow weeds in your yard? I guess I don't have much left here. Just one final thing, I guess, is my police car. It says Bigwater Marshal on it, and none of the serve and protect garbage. On mine, I put freedom, responsibility, community, which I thought was.
And Willy, I hate to interrupt.
Anyway, that's it.
Real quick, anybody who wants to meet with the Dodgers, they've got to leave at 4:30, so they're actually probably on the way out. So if you want to go and talk to them or get a book or whatever, and I just want to make sure before they leave. Anybody have any questions for Willy? Anyone? I want to thank. Oh, please. Here.
I just want to say, even though I'm the concluding speaker, and because I know that you're leaving, I wanted to be able to say to you, God bless you.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the ultimate. My talk that I was going to give, is named Courage is Unlimited. And you are an exact exhibition of what my talk was going to be. But because of you and because of this incredible guy, I'm going to change it. But I wanted you to know that you and your family is what I'm all about.
Well, let's carry that on. Let's wrap up Willy, and then we'll bring on James Mooney. Guys, Willy, thank you again. Please, really, and I hate to use you, but
Before I leave, though, we have to have a quiz. What are the 3 things you need to do to get elected? No, suit up, show up, and play the game. That's right.
Good. Thank you. Look, I'm serious. All you have to do, just remember 2 words, Willy Marshall, anytime somebody brings up the unelectable argument. I mean, an openly gay libertarian mayor in Utah. It's awesome. You'll just win the argument.